Hello, welcome to the April 4th Coalition Show. This is the April 29th, 2024 edition of the show. We're going to try to wing it without Liz Mans here. We wish her and her family the best. Thank you, Michael and Susan and Rachel, for joining us. The April 4th Coalition's mission statement is we are for workers' rights and collective bargaining rights, and we're against tax breaks for the rich and corporations who ship our jobs overseas. We have a new sign behind us. We use this. It's poverty is the enemy, and that's our focus. And it's always the focus of unions, which brought America the middle class, and something that's been disappearing quite a bit lately. And so we encourage people to exercise their rights as spelled out in Article 23 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Number one, everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and protection against unemployment. Number two, everyone, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work.
Number three, everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration, ensuring for herself and himself and his or her family an existence worthy of human dignity, and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection.
Michael, number four.
Okay, everyone has the right to form and join trade unions to protect his or her interests.
And I think, as Liz would always say, we want to thank Dave Fabiano, Executive Director of NBCTC, for April 4th Coalition. But also, this program is shown on Friday evening in WMNB LP 107.1, and thank Mike Putnam for carrying this program there also.
Yeah, so last week we just started to scratch the surface about the housing issues that are erupting here in North Adams, with rents skyrocketing, not enough available housing for the people. And we wanted to stick on that topic. And so I got a few videos. They're from a year to 6 months old, about Massachusetts and what's going on there. But this is one that was done. It's why does Massachusetts struggle with affordable housing? It's from the CBS Boston station. So let's take a look at that and use that as a springboard.
Well, Massachusetts, I think we all know, is one of the most expensive states to live in. In fact, according to this year's Cost of Living Index, Boston is the 21st most expensive city in the entire world.
Wow, housing is the biggest monthly expense for most of us. And in tonight's Question Everything, WBZ's Chris Tanaka is asking what is considered affordable and what's being done to ease the burden.
Is affordable?
Literally nothing. Not a thing. Not gas, not food, not anything.
It's insane. I'd say like a donut coming from where I work.
Look, it's easy to make light of the cost of consumer goods because by and large, we can all get past the cost of a dozen eggs. Inflation is temporary. But when it comes to the cost of housing, that's when this conversation gets gravely serious. And that's why we're asking, what is affordable housing?
According to the federal government and most affordable housing programs, you should pay about 30% of your income towards housing costs, including rent, utilities, or if you're paying a mortgage payment.
Eric Shupin is the Director of Public Policy for the Citizens Housing and Planning Association. He notes while metrics have been created to measure affordability, they're rarely being met.
In Massachusetts, nearly half of all renters pay more than 50% of their income towards rent.
That's got people feeling pinched and being forced to uproot their lives.
I'm staying with a girlfriend. I'm renting a room at the moment.
I'm a single person. I don't have a family. I live by myself. Being single and living alone is very, very expensive.
The reasons are many. Inflation, land costs, labor, materials. Even Boston's prosperity and affluence works against renters. Take a look at this graph. An individual making almost $80,000 a year is considered low income by the Office of Housing when it comes to affordable housing opportunities. Lower incomes are getting squeezed, but so are middle-income earners.
This middle area is kind of like the people that suffer the most, because there isn't a lot of resourcing for that middle area, but we still can't afford the usual stuff.
I've spoken to developers who said we simply can't build middle-class housing in Boston and Massachusetts right now.
Jesse Kansen-Benanav runs Abundant Housing Massachusetts. He stresses a need for more housing stock at all price points.
We end up in a scenario where wealthy folks, the wealthiest residents of our state, are directly competing with middle income and working families for a very limited supply of housing.
The city and state are aggressively trying to tackle the issue with new policies to increase stock and reduce cost. A newly launched website, housingnavigatorma.org, actually lists rent limit properties and income restricted properties. It's all a good start, but everyone we spoke to said more needs to be done.
We need more resources, we need more homes, and all these things need to come together in order to make sure that, again, everybody's being served by affordable housing that needs it.
So where does this leave us? Well, short term, we're going to put that housing registry on our website, cbsboston.com, so you can check it out for yourself. And long term, you can count on us to stay on top of it, because this housing issue is something none of us can afford. In Boston, Chris Tanaka, WBZ News.
Well,
Whoa. And of course, I remember in my economics class in 1960, a quarter of your income was housing. And I really bristle at the word affordable. And I think this is multifaceted problem, but obviously I think the core is greed. And then I think that the next is entrenched politicians that will really not do the hard work. We probably need some rent controls. I think, and I know personally, and from people that I'm working with, abuse of elders and disabled people keeps them from complaining and getting any assistance because of retaliation, which I also suffered from and had to move. And it took me, I'm in subsidized housing, 17 months to be able to find another place to live, and I had to leave North Adams as a result of it. Now, and I say I am blessed to have found another place. But what is happening in Massachusetts and across the country is unconscionable.
yeah.
And
The thing that stuck out to me was they were saying that almost $80,000 was just a moderate income.
Yeah.
And we look around in North Adams,
nobody's making
No,
it.
man.
there's some people,
Except those in,
some are, but not very many. Like we had the workers striking at Mass MoCA, and they just wanted to get up to
18.
and that's not even
25 an
livable.
hour.
That's not even livable wage.
No. So it's hard to believe. Like that one guy said, donuts are affordable. That's about it. Nothing else is affordable. But there's another video that I thought we'd look at. And it more zeroes in on this family that moved up from Guatemala, and they're living in Massachusetts in Lynn. But there's a lot of other talk of what's going on in Lynn, and we can relate to what the prices are here, or moving up here in North Adams. So let's watch that $200 rent hike price as a family in Lynn. The prices out a family in Lynn. Let's watch that video.
By Boston area standards, the city of Lynn is still somewhat affordable. The median rent for a 2-bedroom apartment here is $2,150, about $1,000 less than in Boston proper. For years, that's made Lynn a destination for new immigrants, including many from Central America, like Olga Valiente. Olga left Guatemala after a gang threatened to kidnap her children. She's lived in Lynn for 9 years, and in this modest apartment near Lynn Common for 3. Her son sleeps here on an inflatable mattress to save space. Her 2 daughters share another bedroom, and Olga, who works cleaning other people's homes, has the third to herself. There's also a small kitchen and another space that's part living room and part dining room.
Por lo cerca de la escuela,
Speaking through an interpreter, Olga says even though their home is small, the location is ideal, near their church, her kids' schools, and their grocery store. What's more, they've been able to pay for it until now.
Impresionante porque
This spring, Olga's landlord told her the rent was increasing from $1,900 to $2,100. That's still below the current median for a Lynn 3-bedroom. But Olga says that for her family, it's just not doable long term.
si ganamos apenas
We barely can make it to 1900. Imagine when I had to pay all that increase.
y ahora se da de
Olga's story raises doubts about the idea that production alone can solve the housing crisis. Development in Lynn is booming, but it's mostly smaller, more expensive units. This new building doesn't have any 3 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms start at about $3,000. At Lynn City Hall, plans are underway to change that.
It's certainly a top priority for our administration, and it's one of the most pressing issues in the city.
Lynn Mayor Jared Nicholson is readying a new requirement that developers also create affordable housing on site or elsewhere, including units within reach of Lynn's poorest residents. But the details haven't been unveiled, and Nicholson says it'll be crucial to push hard, but not too hard.
You want to set the right balance where you're doing right by the residents who are struggling with affordable housing, doing right by the community, but also continuing to allow investors to make a return.
¿Está dibujando, mami?
Maybe in a few years, Olga and her family will reap the benefits. But right now, she says she has literally no idea where they'll go if they have to move.
Pues como yo le digo a los niños, ¿verdad?
I had a conversation with my children, and that's what we always say, where we're going to end it up. Probably in the mountains or under the bridge. We don't know where we're going to go because we don't want to have that amount of money to pay the rent.
Demasiado difícil.
When I talk to them about that, it hurts. It's really hard.
Yeah. Look, that's a picture of poverty, women and children. That's the majority of people in
I'm not
poverty.
even making what they're paying in rent and Social Security. And we have to be very careful with people who have been threatened from other countries coming here and doing a divide and conquer against those people. But part of the solution is rent controls. Part of it is not developers. Of course, there's nothing wrong with somebody making a profit, but this is gouging. This is just gouging. And there, you know, I listened to that mayor saying, you know, it doesn't want to be too hard, but you've got to push really hard now, and for housing for people who are threatened or become middle-class people who become poverty-stricken. And I know of a woman this last week who's a vice president in a big company. She moved to be in an apartment by herself. Her landlord is not going to, what do you call it, when you rent, your lease, give her, renew her lease, because he can get more money.
Yeah.
So here she moved like a year ago. So there it is. There's another example of what's going on. If landlords can rent for $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, the money gouging, there must be a way to stop the gouging.
Right. We have to try to organize
Yeah.
and support.
Yes.
Now, there's another video here with the governor trying to address the issue. She's put forth a bill trying to get more funding for housing. So let's hear what the governor is saying. And
the housing crisis continues in Massachusetts with astronomical home prices and unaffordable rents. 22 News State House reporter Ellen Fleming has the latest move from the Healey administration to tackle those concerns.
The Healey administration announced a $4 billion plan to generate home production and make housing more affordable across the Bay State. The bill will be the largest investment in housing in the state's history. In Healey's inaugural address, she called out the high cost of living in the state, saying that we have some of the lowest home ownership rates in the country. The $4 billion will go to supporting production, preservation, and rehabilitation of more than 65,000 homes, Healey said. Along with housing production, $1.6 billion will go to repairing, rehabilitating, and modernizing the state's 43,000 public housing units.
For the average family in Massachusetts, you know, we want people to know that this law, this bill, okay, we want it to become law. We want this authorization is for you. We need more housing. We need cheaper housing. I've said from the outset, I don't want people leaving Massachusetts. It's an awesome place. There's so much that's great about our state. But one thing that isn't great, and I'm being honest with the public about this, is our housing costs.
With this bill, local communities would have the option of adopting a real estate transaction fee on the portion of property sales over $1 million. And close to $1.83 billion would be set aside for housing production and preservation through programs like the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and the Housing Works infrastructure program. Now, this plan still needs approval from the legislature, although the governor did sign 3 executive orders related to this legislation. Working for you at the State House in Boston, Ellen Fleming, 22 News.
So they're trying to spend the money. They're trying to get the bills
At
there.
least, finally, I'm hearing the words rehabilitation and preservation used. And, you know, it is a lower housing stock. It's use of houses that are falling apart that can be rehabilitated. Of course, I think this is a multifaceted, again, government, financial institutions, community awareness and concern and commitment that needs to go into solving this.
And just to put it in perspective, because I know we bombarded you with a lot of information about the Boston area, but I got this one video. It's about a year old, but it's a real estate agent, and I just want to show the two minutes of her video. And I was mystified by it, but let's watch that video on the real estate agent.
You would think that Massachusetts is so expensive, right? Think again. There are some very affordable places in Massachusetts. In this video, I'm going to talk about 10 very affordable places that will really surprise you. And make sure to stay until the end because I'm going to give you a couple of bonus places. My name is Nune. I'm a real estate agent in Boston and the surrounding areas. If you're thinking of buying or selling in Massachusetts, please reach out to me. I would love to help. In this video, I also have the high school rankings, which a lot of people find very useful. But I didn't include any safety or crime statistics. For that, I would encourage you to reach out to the police department in those places, in the towns and cities. Number 1 on my list is North Adams. North Adams is on the border of New Hampshire in the north of Berkshires. Median home sale price is $198,500. Now, all the numbers are very recent. I just looked them up on MLS. So these are real numbers from the last week. What's interesting in North Adams is you don't feel like you are in this very cheap place. It actually has a lot of artistic vibe because a lot of artistic and cultural institutions are in North Adams and there are a lot of professional artists living here. There is Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts, which is ranked as one of 2023 top 10 colleges by U.S. News and World Report. There's Clark Art Institute and many other cultural events. Also, you have the natural beauty of Berkshire County with its majestic mountain ranges and the hiking trails and natural splendor. The residents earn a median income of $49,123. The closest large city is Pittsburgh, which is 45 minutes away. The next large city is actually Albany, New York, which is 1 hour and 15 minutes away. I would say 99% of the towns and cities that I have on my list don't have a very strong nightlife. A few restaurants in North Adams, a movie theater, and the shopping options are limited as well. Drury High School is 205th in Massachusetts according to U.S. News and High School rankings. Graduation rate is 78%.
Well, I just cut that off, but now we're wondering why people are moving to North Adams. You got real estate agents saying that this is the place to move.
The figures are astounding. And of course, years ago when I was a candidate, I talked about gentrification. I don't know where she's getting her information, but MCLA and MassMoCA are both nonprofits, so they're not tax paid, and also silent on our hospital fight, and don't get me there. But her figures for maybe pushing as many residents as possible out, maybe that's possible, but I mean, I just want to choke on that, that
Susan?
perception.
Kind of funny when they talk about the cultural and artists. How many artists make a lot of money? Come on, let's be, real here. To even pay the rent, never mind even
the economy.
And feed themselves. They don't make a lot of money.
Right, and what's happening is, we heard those high rents in Lynn, like moving up for a three-bedroom apartment, $2,100. Well, and so what's happening is people are being drawn to North Adams, and then the people who are landlords in North Adams, well, the market rate, I can get this much for this apartment. I can get people from Boston to move here.
Right.
There's a lot of people working through
Zoom?
Yeah,
Online.
teleworking or whatever. And so all of a sudden they're coming, and that's driving up the cost of apartments here in North Adams. But people who lived here all their lives are being pushed out.
Yeah. And Mike, you're an example of, because of a law that almost pushed you out, where Dan Bosley got a bill passed in 1996 that mayors could sell tax liens. So that was another way.
And what did that was Mayor
Bernard, well, at the
Mayor
time
Bernard.
with Mike and his wife, it was
Tom
Bernard, and he had a plan to pay taxes.
Yeah. So they just, so they more or less gave it to a collection agency rather than
They did.
working with people, which
Well,
Mike.
he had an agreement that they couldn't find.
Yeah,
But
but he was paying on a regular basis. But yeah, that was,
But there's an example of a regulation or a law that was put in place for people like Mike and Peggy, elderly, trying to hold on to their home, being foreclosed on, without the resources for legal
Right, and what
assistance.
happened, they just pushed it off, like, okay, this isn't our responsibility anymore, we're not gonna go after this money, we're gonna pay a private company that charges loan shark.
Collection agencies, right.
Yeah, loan shark rates, 19, 20, 21% interest, when really what we have to do is have a government that's responsive to the needs of the people.
Yes.
Like, we have real people. I know a guy that grew up in my neighborhood, I think I talked about him last week. He grew up in my neighborhood. His family grew up in this apartment. He lived in the apartment. Now all of a sudden the house has been bought and sold a few times, and now they're going to price him right out of it. They're going to renovate it and probably turn it into condos. So he's not going to be able to afford it on his meager income. So
I couldn't hold on to the
Yeah.
family home that was almost 100 years old.
right, it's
couldn't hold
what
on.
what we need to do is well, on several points. Look for people, find out if they're having problems, and try to work with them and advocate for them on the one level, just the personal, interpersonal, but then we have to work with the government agencies to let's ensure that we have affordable housing here. Maybe we need to build another Mohawk Forest or another, is it called Brickyard Terrace, or is it Brayton Hill Apartments?
Brayton Hill.
Brayton Hill
Brayton Hill,
Apartments. We need some more affordable housing, something that,
We need housing for low and poverty-stricken individuals, subsidized.
and elderly.
And then, and elderly and disabled, but you also have to make sure there are protections in place, and transparency, accountability, protection, and enforcement. I call those my tape. You have to have those in place governmentally to say people have to be held accountable. Agencies have to be held accountable to do the work that they are charged with doing.
Right.
That's the big problem.
Well, my father always used to say, Susan, you don't own anything.
He's probably
And what did he mean by that?
He meant by that is that you can have a house be paid for, and if you can't pay the taxes, the town.
There's exactly what almost happened to Mike and Peggy.
Yeah.
I hope it's all right that I'm bringing that up, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, so my father always used to say that, so you don't own anything.
Well, my grandmother sort of had that same feeling. She said to us, get your education. That's the only thing they can't take away from you is your education. They can take anything else you have away from you, but they can't take your education away from you.
And for those young people that are buying homes, they're not buying homes now because they can't save the money to buy a home, and then they can't get into it. And so they're caught back and forth, the young people trying to rent a place.
yeah.
And how do you rent a place that keeps going up and save money to buy a home? And then the housing stock is
Yeah, I was fortunate because I was on the income where I got the Pell Grant, and
Oh,
they
nice.
paid for me to go to college in my 50s when I became disabled again. And so there are some programs, but Mass Rehab, I tried again and to get some help, but I think it's my age that they're, you know, I'm sure of it.
It's discrimination.
And I'm also sure that only cerebral palsy, they were very good, but they're still held back, you know, by, what do they call those? I forgot. Anyways, but they're the most helpful I think I've had so far as trying to get me some.
Which also speaks to this is a graying city. It's actually a
Right.
town. We've lost some of the population.
Why
So
do they-
When the elderly have had their homes or disabled
Mhm.
for so long, and then they're fighting to hold on to them at a time when they should not be stressed by this kind of horrific treatment.
Right. We need to address this issue on a statewide basis. I mean, if they can make housing affordable in Boston and in other parts of the state,
What about
it
us?
won't put as much pressure on us. It'll be easier for us to address the problem here in North Berkshire. We won't have people fleeing those areas to come here just because we have lower housing prices and driving our price up.
Well, I think a lot of that happened after September 11th. Somebody's got $1 million condo in New York City or Boston, and they could buy a house here for $100,000 at the time, maybe more now,
Bless
a couple
you.
hundred. They watch the real estate prices. You can see what's happening in North Adams and other
Yeah.
small towns. And, you know, there they are. They $800,000 left over. If they got $1 million, they could buy a house for $200,000. Hey, that's a good deal.
Right, it is.
And it drives.
It's good to have more people coming to North Adams.
But they
we
have to have a commitment, and there has to be
Yeah.
a structure that they are contributing, not at the expense of other residents.
Right. We want everybody to participate in this,
Yeah.
enterprise as a society. We don't want having an underclass of people that don't feel like they belong to anything, that are just struggling to get by.
What about all these people that are getting evicted? Where are they going?
Right.
Under bridges? I mean, where do they go?
That's it. The Supreme Court was hearing a
should talk
case,
about that, yeah.
and I just remember Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor, when they were saying that they don't have a right to sleep in public. She said, well, you have a right to breathe. What's the difference? Breathing and sleeping,
Here
it's
we
the
are.
same. But anyways,
Power
we're here
to
at
the
the
people.
end of the show, but let's give
Power
people
to the people, and thank
Power
you.
to the people. Thank you.
Power to the people.
There's power in the factory, power in the land, power in the hand of the worker. But it all amounts to nothing if together we don't stand. There is power in our union. Now the lessons of the past are all learned with workers' blood. Mistakes of the bosses we must pay for. From the cities and the farmlands to trenches full